Today in a class we're going to make a pouch for you to put your phone in. Can you pass me the phone please, Rosemary? Most of us have a phone something like that, don't we? Slip it in, and it's just got a little button and an elastic there to do it up for when you've got it in your purse. You will need 2 pieces of material, one for the outside, one for the lining, 22 centimeters by 16. You're going to need some padding. I've just got here a compressed wool type padding. You can use this, you can use quilting padding in there, or if you're wanting to use what's hanging around, a bit of fleecy material will do perfectly as well. Same size. One piece of material about 22 centimeters long, 5 centimeters wide to make the handle. You will also need a piece of elastic about 7 centimeters long, 7 or 8 centimeters long, and a button. So choose yourself a matching button. I think I'll go for black on this one. Let's prepare the handle. You need to fold over each side, not quite a centimetre like that, and iron that down. There you can see I've pressed that over. That's the easy way to make a strap. Now we're just going to stitch down each side. When we're making the pouch, you'll treat the outside piece of material and the padding as a single piece. So just put them together like that. First of all, we want to find the centre at the top up here. You can measure it, or you can fold it in half and put a pin in there, right at the point where it's folded. At that centre place, we're going to put the strap side by side, pin that into place. On one of these sides now, and I usually do it on this side, again, we're going to come 1.5 centimetres in from the edge, which is the seam allowance, to the centre of where those 2 straps are. That's 10.5 centimetres, so 5.25. The pin into mark it, and there we've put the loop for the elastic. I'm going to stitch across the top here now, and as I go over the strap, I'll go backwards and forwards. As I go over the elastic, I'll go backwards and forwards. That will just simply secure that in well. Now we don't have to worry about these moving. They're nice and secure in their right place. The lining on the top over there, I will stitch across that same line again with the 2 pieces right sides together. Now I'm going to teach you a little trick. Will make your sewing look a lot neater. When you've got a lining and an outside piece, and that's actually going to fold over neat like this, if you do an extra row of stitching the seam onto the lining side, all the way down there, that will help it roll over and not show in the end. Now this is called stay stitching. You use it when you do facings around your neck or armholes, and it really does help the fabric turn over so that the inside doesn't show. It's a good little trick, that. Now we're just simply going to fold it over this way, and the one point you want to match very well is this point where this seam and this seam here. So use a pin it out at right angles like that, so we know that that's nice and exact there. Now we're going to stitch around these 3 edges, but we're going to leave a gap of about 6 or 7 centimetres here so we can turn this through to the right side. So I'm going to start about there and stitch right around all 3 sides. As we always do when we're turning something through, we'll trim across the corners. Now this fleecy lining in the middle will actually make this a little bit thicker where it's turned there. There is no way that can fray, it's just fleece. So just trim that closer to the seam, don't cut your seam. Now at this point here where you've got all of these seams, that's a little bit thick, just trim that off. Turn it through. We've turned that through to the right side. There's this little gap up here where I left that before. Use the tip of your scissors to push the corners out nice and sharp. Don't pierce the fabric. Now we've just got to stitch up this little gap. We fold in the seam allowance on both sides, bring the 2 edges together, and I'll just stitch across the top there. There, it's stitched across the top. All we need to do now is push that in. Now we've just pushed that in. Use your fingers to make sure you've got the corners touched right down in there. Simply now stitch the button on there. I'm going to give you another hint that commercial dressmakers or manufacturers do when they're sewing on buttons. I actually use 4 layers of thread. Pull your thread out, fold it in half, then where that half bit is, put that through the eye of your needle. You have 4 lengths of thread. It's stronger and it's quicker for sewing on the button. Tie a knot at the bottom of your thread. Check where the position of your button needs to go, right at the end of that loop. I bring the thread through and then I do 1 little stitch. That just secures that thread nice and firm. This is a button with a shank, a hole, a loop, a hole at the back. Stitch it on 3 or 4 times, push your needle through to the back. Now to tie a knot when you're finished hand stitching, just pick up a little tiny piece of fabric, bring the loop until the loop's small, and go through the back of your loop with your needle. Pull it tight and that makes a knot. Make it secure by doing a second one.
You finish your hand stitching totally different to what I do.
Well, your mother should have taught you better.
I think I learnt that when I went to school, when I went to TAFE.
How do you do it?
3 or 4 little stitches in the same spot, and then just cut it.
Yep.
As well, when I do buttons, I will, like...
You roll round
it. And then
without a
stitch back
shank?
through. Yeah.
When it hasn't got a shank? Yeah. There's your completed phone pouch. If you have a BlackBerry or an iPhone, you just need to check the size, whether it's going to be large enough for your phone. Make something a little bit larger than this and you've got for your GPS or your camera.
Ooh, iPad.
An iPad.
Yeah, make a good big one.
Make a nice big one for your iPad. I'd like an iPad.
Oh, that's a useless piece of fun technology.